Today we're going to continue talking about circles, this time the circumference of circles. And the discussion is going to be kind of similar to area, even though we're using a different formula. So when we talked about area, area was all the space inside of the circle, and the circumference is the distance around the circle. And we know that a circle has 360 degrees in it, but when we talk about circumference, or the distance around the circle, we're talking about a linear measurement, something like inches or feet or meters, centimeters. So like if we were able to, take a pair of scissors and cut the circle right here, and then take this circle and lay it out flat and straight and measure it, that would be the circumference. If I were riding around this circle in a car, what would the distance be before I got back to where I started? And so the formula for that is 2 times pi times the radius. So really all we need to find the circumference, just like all we need to find area, is the radius and the right formula. So we can find the circumference here. I have a radius of 2. I want to find the distance all the way around. So that means if I were to start right here in order to drive all the way around the circle, how many yards would I travel? And so I start with my formula and I plug the radius in for r. And then I can do 2 times 2 and get 4. And if I want to leave my answer in terms of pi, I write it as 4 pi yards. If I want my answer as close as possible, not in terms of pi, I could say 12.57 yards. Let me do another one. This time I get the diameter, and so I can just cut that in half. And so the diameter is 8, so my my radius is 4. So the circumference of my circle in terms of pi is 8 pi meters. Not in terms of pi is 25.13 meters. So again, if I were to jump in a car right here and drive all the way around the circle back to where I started, it would be about a 25.13 meter drive. So I want you to pause right here. I want you to try this one on your own. Find the circumference of this circle. So the radius is 11, and I plug 11 in. And so in terms of pi, my circumference is 22 pi inches. And not in terms of pi, the circumference is 69.12 inches. So just like in with area, when we had areas of sectors, just pieces of circles, sometimes we want to know the length of part of the circle, the length of the arc. Earlier in the year, we found the measure of an arc. And again, that was some degree measure. The whole circle's 360, and some part of that was some degrees less than 360. Here I want to find the length. That's a piece of the circumference. So my answer is still going to be in something like inches or feet, meters, centimeters. It's going to be tempting to want to report that in degrees, but when we ask for length, that's the key word, length, we need to use this formula down here to find out how long that thing is, what fraction of the circumference are we looking at. And so just like with sector area, we find the circumference, 2 pi r, and then we multiply the circumference by whatever the arc measure is, that's the degree measure, divided by 360. So this portion here, arc time divided by 360, it sort of tells you what fraction of the circle are we looking at. Are we looking at 25% of it, 10% of it, 9%? And then we multiply that by the circumference, and that'll tell us how long the arc is. So let's try one. I want to find how long is this arc. Well, we know its measure is 195 degrees, and that's going to help us find the length, but that's not the length. Okay, that's not how long it is in yards. That's what we're looking for. So we have a radius of 7 yards, and we have an arc measure of 195 degrees. So we're going to plug those in. 7 goes in here, and my 195 goes in for the arc. I can find that 195 divided by 360, that decimal, And now I'm going to multiply 2 times 7 to get 14, and then 14 times that decimal. And I'm going to leave my answer in terms of pi first. So that arc is 7.58 pi yards. And then if I want to multiply through by pi, 23.82 yards. So this is very similar to sector area. We're using the circumference formula, and then we're multiplying by the arc divided by 360. So here I have this arc of 135 degrees, and I want to know how long it is in feet. So again, I'm plugging the radius in for r and 135 degrees in for the arc. I'm going to find that decimal, 135 divided by 360. And now I'm going to multiply 2 times 19 times 0.375. And in terms of pi, this is 14.2 pi feet. 14.25 pi feet. And if I multiply through by pi, it's 44.77 feet. So I want you to pause here. I want you to try this one on your own. You have an arc of 120 degrees and a radius of 13 centimeters. I want to know how long the arc is in centimeters. So I'm going to plug 13 in, my radius, and 120, my arc. Get that decimal. It's a third, 0.33 repeating. So I just did 0.33. Multiply 2 times 13, gets you 26 times 0.33, gets you 8.66 pi centimeters. And if you multiply through by pi, you get 27.2 centimeters approximately. So I have two for you to do. I want you to find the circumference of the first circle and then the length of the arc in the second circle. And if you have any questions, make sure you're ready to ask them in class.